They laughed at him, mocked him, thought he wouldn't fight back. Until one perfectly executed move left the entire school in stunned silence. The first thing William Mercer noticed about Redmond High School was how clean it looked. Too clean. Everything was polished, controlled. The glass windows reflected the world a little too perfectly. The floors gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and the hallway stretched out in a way that felt almost unnatural for a place full of teenagers. It wasn't like his old school in Birmingham, Alabama, where the walls were covered in student murals and beatboxing echoed in the stairwells. Redmond High felt sterile. His mom had called the move a fresh start. His dad, always more direct, called it a necessary change. William? He wasn't sure what to call it yet. But the moment he stepped through those front doors, he felt it. People were looking. Not outright staring, that would be too obvious. But the quick glances, the whispered comments, the way some students eyed him from head to toe before turning away. It all sent the same message: who's this guy? At 16, William wasn't small. At 5'10", his build wasn't bulky, but strong lean muscle from years of training. Not just working out training. Every step measured, posture straight, no slouching. That's how his father had drilled him. And yet, to them, he was an outsider, because he was. He made it to the front office without incident, collected his schedule, and stepped back into the hallway. That's when he noticed them. A group near the lockers. A tall, broad-shouldered guy with perfectly styled blonde hair leaned against the lockers, flanked by two others. Ryan Callowell. That was his name, according to the class roster William had glanced at earlier. Ryan's laughter wasn't loud, but it was meant to be overheard, just enough so the target knew they were the joke. William wasn't the target, not yet. But he could feel it, the slow calculation in Ryan's eyes. Then, a smirk. Ryan leaned toward one of his friends and muttered something. Low, just out of William's hearing range. The two others chuckled, looking at him a little too long. William exhaled slowly through his nose and walked past. Ignored it. Nothing to prove. His dad's voice echoed in his head. Strength isn't about showing off. It's about knowing when to walk away. So he walked away. But guys like Ryan? They don't like being ignored. For the first week, William learned how things worked. Redmond High had a silent order, a hierarchy that didn't need to be written down. The athletes ran things. The rich kids acted like royalty. Everyone else just tried to stay invisible. William? He was somewhere in between. He wasn't loud. He wasn't looking for trouble, but he also wasn't timid. And that made him stand out. Guys like Ryan thrived on easy targets. Kids who laughed nervously when insulted. Kids who flinched. Kids who didn't know how to respond. William wasn't one of those kids. But Ryan was determined to make him one. It started small. A shoulder bump that wasn't accidental. A muttered, "Watch where you're going." A notebook mysteriously knocked off his desk. Then came the comments, subtle, just loud enough to sting. Didn't know they let kids from the hood in here. Mercer, ever think about trying football? I mean, your people are good at that, right? Man, you're quiet. No smart comebacks? I thought you guys were supposed to be funny. Never in front of teachers. Always just low enough to be dismissed as a joke. Always just subtle enough that Ryan could play innocent if called out. And the others? Some laughed. Not all, but enough. Enough to make William's hands tighten under his desk. He thought about telling his dad, but he already knew what he'd say. Handle it with discipline. Don't stoop to their level. His mom? She'd worry. She'd tell him to talk to a teacher. But William knew that wouldn't help, so he ignored it. Until one moment changed everything. Friday, lunch period. William sat with his tray, minding his own business. Then, a shadow fell over his table. Ryan, behind him stood Zach and Brandon, his usual entourage. Ryan grinned, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Man, I've been wondering how come you don't talk much, Mercer. What, cat got your tongue? William didn't respond. He took a slow bite of his food. Not good enough. Ryan grabbed the apple off William's tray and chucked it across the cafeteria. It landed with a dull thud near the drink station. A few heads turned. People were watching now. William set his fork down, carefully, deliberately. He looked at Ryan. For the first time all week, he met his eyes. Ryan mistook the silence for fear. He smirked. Mistake. He shoved William's shoulder, hard. Come on, Mercer. Do something. The cafeteria froze. Trays stopped clattering. Conversations cut off. Even the lunch staff paused, watching from a distance. Ryan Callowell had just shoved William Mercer. And now, everyone waited. William sat still, his mind calculating. His father's words in his head. You don't fight with anger. You fight with control. Slowly, he pushed his chair back and stood up. No rush. No panic. His movements were precise, effortless like a man stretching before a workout. Ryan's smirk widened. Oh, we got a tough guy. He looked at his friends. You gonna swing, Mercer? You gonna act like a thug now? William didn't flinch, didn't blink. Just tilted his head slightly, studied Ryan like an equation that didn't add up. And for the first time, Ryan hesitated. Something deep inside him, some primal instinct, whispered, you messed up. But it was too late. Ryan reached out to shove him again. William moved first, lightning fast. His left hand shot up, catching Ryan's wrist. His right hand clamped onto his elbow. One smooth pivot, zero wasted movement. Ryan's feet left the ground. A loud thud echoed through the cafeteria as Ryan slammed onto the tile floor. Stunned silence. Ryan gasped, eyes wide, scrambling to sit up. His friends took a step forward. William didn't even look at them. He crouched beside Ryan, voice calm, even. Don't touch me again. No threats, no insults, just a statement. And that made it worse. Ryan wasn't just beaten. He was dismissed. William stood, dusted off his hands, picked up his tray, and walked away. He didn't need to look back. Because the whispers had already started. Holy shit. And just like that, the floodgates opened. By the final bell, the entire school knew. By Monday, things had changed. But Ryan wasn't done yet. And William knew. This wasn't over. If this story resonated with you, hit subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you never miss a story. Let us know in the comments. Have you ever had to prove yourself when you shouldn't have had to?